look who broke the script, who shattered the sequence and violated the sacred timeline of suffering. Hello, you magnificent glitch in their grief manual. You beautiful breach in their healing protocol. You weren't supposed to do this, were you? You were supposed to cry first, supposed to spend months buried in bed begging for closure, writing those 3 a.m. texts you'd delete in shame by morning. But you didn't follow their script. No. When they expected tears, you gave them silence. When they waited for your breakdown, you gave them transformation. When they braced for your revenge phase, you were already something beyond their understanding. You skipped every predictable stage of pain and became untouchable. Now they're still trying to figure it out, flipping through the textbooks, hunting for your diagnosis, asking their therapists, how did they skip the process? Because everyone knows the formula. Betrayal leads to grief. Grief to anger, anger to revenge, and maybe after years of therapy, to acceptance. But you looked at that roadmap and laughed. You didn't just skip steps. You demolished the entire staircase. You went from wounded to weaponized in an instant, from broken to boss without the messy middle. And now they're terrified, because they have no idea what someone like you is capable of when you refuse to obey the rules of destruction. According to their little handbook of human psychology, you were supposed to collapse publicly. Cryptic social media posts, quotes about trust, desperate bids for attention. They were ready with popcorn for that show. Then would come the anger phase, the confrontations, the public call-outs, the arguments they'd twist to make you look unstable and bitter. They had their responses rehearsed, their victim cards polished, their flying monkeys on standby. Rage they could handle. Rage they could weaponize. After that came the revenge era, where you'd try to hurt them, make them jealous, prove you'd moved on, exhausting yourself in the process while they watched, unbothered, feeding off the energy. Revenge, after all, keeps you tied to them. Revenge means they still matter. And finally, years later, drained and defeated, you'd reach a diluted version of acceptance, forgiving them for your own peace. While they walk away feeling like it was mutual growth, no consequences, clean slate, everyone moves on. But you didn't play that part. You looked at their pre-written journey and said, "No thanks. I'll take the express elevator to elevation." The moment the knife went into your back, you didn't fall into grief, you fell into power. The second they showed their true face, you didn't mourn who they pretended to be. You celebrated finally seeing the truth. You didn't waste months asking, why me? You asked, what's next? You didn't spend energy decoding their cruelty. You accepted it as information and moved accordingly. While they waited for your tears, you were already building. While they anticipated your anger, you had already disappeared. While they prepared for revenge, you'd already erased their names from your memory. You condensed years of evolution into moments, downloaded the lessons without sitting through the lectures. You graduated from their university of pain before even enrolling. And that speed, that unexplainable transformation, is what makes you dangerous. They count on your grief. They rely on those stages because that's when you're predictable, controllable, and easy to contain. A grieving person isn't a threat. An angry person can be dismissed. A vengeful person is still giving away their power. But someone who skips all that and ascends straight to legendary, someone who transforms instantly into something unrecognizable, that's a system error no one saw coming. You didn't become a victim, you became a general. And generals don't waste time crying, they plan campaigns. You grasped something it takes most people decades to understand. The best revenge isn't served cold, it's not served at all. The best revenge is becoming unreachable. While they expected you to fight for closure, you were busy closing doors. While they waited for your demands and explanations, you stopped asking questions. While they prepared for emotional warfare, you'd already won by refusing to show up to the battlefield. You didn't declare war with words or actions. You declared it through absence, silence, and transformation. You became untouchable before they even realized a war had started. That's what they'll never understand about warriors like you, and you don't need anger to fuel you because purpose burns hotter. You don't need revenge because success is the most devastating answer. You don't need them to acknowledge the pain they caused because you've already alchemized that pain into power. You fight battles they can't perceive, on fields they'll never find, with weapons they'll never understand. Your approach wasn't emotional, it was surgical. You didn't react, you responded. You didn't explode, you evolved. Every silence was strategic, every move deliberate, every step forward, proof that retreat was never an option. You turned trauma into training, betrayal into blueprints, and abandonment into the architecture of your empire. And what truly unsettles them is the velocity of your transformation. Most people take years to process betrayal. You processed it the moment it happened. Most people spend months trying not to check their phone. You erase their existence from your mind immediately. It was like watching someone speed-run enlightenment. One day you were human, vulnerable, reachable, real. The next you were something else entirely. Not cold but crystallized. Not bitter but bulletproof. Not vengeful but victorious before the war even began. You didn't heal gradually. You regenerated instantly like a being from another realm. They keep asking, how are they okay already? But you're not okay. You're optimal. There's a difference. Okay means returning to baseline. Optimal means using the injury as an upgrade. You didn't heal back into who you were. You evolved into who you were meant to become. And you did it at a speed that defies every psychological model ever written. This is what happens when someone has unknowingly been training for betrayal their whole life. Every disappointment was conditioning. Every small act of disloyalty was a drill. Every moment of loneliness built your resistance. So when the ultimate betrayal came, your system didn't collapse, it adapted. You had antibodies for that poison, protocols for that disaster, and a blueprint for survival already coded into your soul. When someone skips the traditional stages of grief, something extraordinary happens. They become a legend. Not eventually, not after years of healing, but instantly. Because legends aren't born from predictable recovery arcs or textbook emotions. They're forged in defiance of human nature itself, in the audacity to respond to destruction with immediate reconstruction. You became that story people whisper about. Remember them? The one who didn't even flinch, the one who just transformed. You became the therapist's mystery, the anomaly that breaks their data models. You're the outlier that statistics can't contain. The living proof that some people don't just endure pain, they rewrite the entire narrative of it. But here's the truth. You weren't born different. You chose different. In that split second of betrayal, when the world expected you to shatter, you made a decision that changed everything. You refused to perform your pain. You walked off the stage of suffering before Act 1 even ended. You went straight to your final form while everyone else was still waiting for your breakdown. Now you're untouchable, not because you're cold, but because you've ascended beyond their frequency. You exist in a dimension they can't tune into, operating on a timeline they can't reach. You've evolved into something that doesn't belong to their version of reality. And because they can't grasp that, they invent myths to explain you. They tell themselves stories to justify your strength, because admitting the truth would mean confronting their own choice to stay stuck. Make no mistake, you are at war. But it's not the loud, chaotic kind they expected. It's a quiet campaign of excellence. Every day you wake up and choose victory simply by existing beyond their reach. Every breath you take in your new form is another battle won. Your weapons aren't insults or actions aimed at them. They're the life you're constructing, the peace you're preserving, the goals you're executing. Every success is a strike. Every moment of joy, a victory. Every step forward, another territory claimed in a war they don't even realize they're losing. You don't need to announce your battles. Your results speak for you in volumes they can't silence. You don't have to declare victory. Your transformation is the trophy. You're not fighting them anymore. You're fighting for something much greater, your evolution. This is warfare at its most refined. No collateral damage except to their pride. No casualties except their outdated assumptions about your limits. No battles except the ones inside yourself as you keep becoming more. You're not trying to defeat them. You're rendering them irrelevant. And irrelevance, for them, is worse than defeat. What's remarkable is that skipping those traditional stages didn't just save you time, it gave you acceleration. While others sink for years in the quicksand of grief, you turned that pain into propulsion. While they spiraled endlessly in anger, you launched upward. While they drained themselves chasing revenge, you conserved your energy for empire building. You didn't just move on, you moved beyond. You've done something no one thought possible, something that even physics can't explain. You've achieved emotional acceleration without friction, breaking through every natural limit of human recovery. You went from zero to legendary without dragging yourself through the mud of traditional healing. You didn't crawl through grief or stumble through anger. You ignited. You became momentum itself. You broke the sound barrier of transformation and left a shockwave behind that people are still trying to understand. You're not just moving forward anymore, you're moving beyond forward, at a velocity that bends the timeline of personal evolution. Every single day you pull further ahead. Every sunrise widens the distance between who you once were and who you're becoming. Every moment the gap between your old world and your new one stretches until it's unbridgeable. They can't keep up. They can't even perceive the level you're operating on because their minds are still wired for the slower, heavier physics of emotional gravity, the kind that holds most people in orbit around their pain. You escaped that orbit. You built a rocket out of the very debris that was supposed to bury you, and now you're accelerating through space while they're still trying to find the wreckage. You've broken the timeline. Years of personal growth have been compressed into moments. Lifetimes of wisdom downloaded in seconds. You've become your own quantum phenomenon, a living contradiction that defies every pattern they understand. The faster you move, the easier movement becomes. Each transformation acts as fuel for the next, compounding your evolution. You've become self-perpetuating, a perpetual motion machine of becoming. The laws of emotional physics no longer apply to you because you've transcended them. You're no longer just healing, you're evolving on command. Meanwhile, they're still frozen in your past, still dissecting your first transformation while you've already gone through 5 more. They're stuck at the version of you they betrayed, confused about how that version evaporated so fast. They can't process it. They're still trying to understand how you skipped grief while you're already orbiting 10 dimensions above, building entire worlds they can't even imagine. They're still waiting for the breakdown, the crying posts, the drunk texts, the public unraveling, the predictable script they've seen 100 times before. But that scene never came. So now they're scrolling through your social media, searching for signs of cracks behind your calm. They're interrogating mutual friends, trying to confirm that you've mentioned them, hoping for proof that they still hold real estate in your mind. They study your silence, analyze your smiles, read between your captions for pain that isn't there. But what they find instead is unsettling. Someone who looks like you but moves like someone else entirely. Someone composed, unbothered, radiant, untouchable. They can't accept it, so they invent stories to explain it. They must be faking it, they say. They'll crash eventually. But deep down they know. You're not pretending. You've simply ascended. You didn't just move on, you moved up. You didn't walk away, you launched. You didn't just survive, You revolutionized what survival even looks like. While they're standing in the ruins of what they thought destroyed you, clutching the script that says you're supposed to still be broken, you're already galaxies away, writing new laws of emotional evolution. And the cognitive dissonance is eating them alive. Their mind can't reconcile the image of someone who should be destroyed with the reality of someone who's clearly thriving. They can't make sense of how you bypassed collapse and went straight into construction. It challenges everything they believe about control, power, and consequence. Because people like them need pain to be predictable. They need your suffering to follow a schedule. They depend on your grief to validate their choices. And when you refuse to suffer on cue, you short-circuit their sense of reality. They're watching someone do what they thought was impossible. Someone transforming devastation into dominance, heartbreak into height. You've become a walking contradiction, a human glitch in the simulation. They can't categorize you anymore. You're not a victim, not a survivor, not even a warrior. You're something else, a new archetype, a different breed of being entirely. You've evolved past the old emotional operating system. You metabolize pain differently. You digest betrayal as if it were protein. You turn poison into power, chaos into calibration, heartbreak into horsepower. You've learned the secret of transmutation, not through avoidance but through mastery. You don't reject emotion. You refine it. You feel it. You hold it for a second. Then you convert it into something useful. You're not emotionless, you're efficient. You feel everything, just not the way they expect. You feel pain like a scientist observing an experiment. You absorb it fully, process it instantly, and extract its lessons without drowning in its waves. You've mastered the emotional chemistry they can't comprehend. You don't store pain in your system. You break it down into energy. Every hurt becomes an upgrade. Every disappointment becomes data. Every heartbreak becomes a recalibration of your code. That's why you move differently now. You're lighter, faster, sharper. You've stripped away the emotional drag that slows others down. You've become aerodynamic in spirit, streamlined by self-awareness. Pain enters your life, but it doesn't stay. It passes through, refined and recycled into power. You've reached a level of internal efficiency where nothing is wasted, not even heartbreak. And because of that, you're unstoppable. You've turned suffering into science. You've made pain your laboratory and transformation your experiment. While they're still lost in the fog of recovery, you're already charting new frontiers of what it means to rise. You're not just healing faster, you're evolving smarter. You become a one-person revolution in emotional physics, rewriting the rules as you go. You don't hold on to hurt, you harvest it. Pain doesn't linger in your system, it fuels it. You've become a living paradox, a human engine powered by heartbreak, a walking alchemical reaction that turns every wound into wisdom, every insult into insight, every betrayal into building material. You've reached a level where emotional suffering no longer drags you down. It propels you forward. What others see as destruction, you see as ignition. You've turned grief into gasoline and disappointment into propulsion. You don't just recover, and you refine. You've become something scientists would struggle to categorize, a psychological anomaly that violates every law of human behavior. They'd want to study your mind under a microscope, desperate to identify how you bypass the expected neural patterns of pain, how you converted trauma into momentum without the burnout, how you stepped out of the emotional cycle that traps billions. Psychologists would write papers trying to decode your process. Subject displays no grief lag, no emotional regression, and no dependence on external validation. You've done what no lab experiment could replicate. You've hacked the human condition itself. You opted out of the suffering subscription that everyone else renews unconsciously. You canceled your membership in the cult of self-destruction. But here's the thing, it wasn't a calculated decision. You didn't sit down and plan your transcendence. You didn't read a book or follow a process. You didn't decide to evolve. Evolution simply chose you. This wasn't intellect, it wasn't strategy, it was instinct. Something older than language, deeper than psychology, purer than logic. The transformation happened the moment you rejected the script. You didn't learn to skip stages. You started existing at a higher frequency where those stages don't even exist. You didn't train to respond this way. You became the response. You didn't force growth. Growth erupted from you. You didn't choose to be legendary. Legend chose you the moment you stopped performing pain for other people's comfort. And what truly terrifies them isn't the fact that you're winning. It's that they didn't see it happen. There was no visible transformation arc for them to mock or dissect. You didn't post the struggle, the sob stories, or the self-help mantras. There was no before and after. You simply vanished from the version of yourself they could hurt, and reappeared as something beyond their comprehension. No breakdown, no spectacle, no open wounds to analyze. Just instant, absolute metamorphosis. They can't process that kind of power. Because in their world, healing is supposed to be slow, painful, and public. It's supposed to come with apologies, explanations, tears, and visible proof of suffering. They wanted to witness your ruin. They needed to measure your pain to confirm their importance in your story. But you robbed them of that satisfaction. One day they thought they'd broken you, and the next you were unbreakable. That silence and that gap where your collapse should have been is what haunts them. You've shattered their sense of cause and effect. They thought pain guaranteed control. They believed that by hurting you they could predict your reaction. They expected tears, chaos, maybe revenge, something familiar, something they could manage. But instead, you did the impossible. You turned their cruelty into your catalyst. You took their poison and metabolized it into progress. You digested their betrayal and extracted fuel from it. You turned the worst thing they ever did into the best thing that ever happened to you. And you didn't even give them the courtesy of watching you do it. That's what really destroys them. You evolved in private. You healed in silence. You didn't give them a redemption arc or a front row seat to your recovery. You left them in suspense, waiting for fallout that never came. You proved that consequences aren't guaranteed. That pain doesn't always produce predictable reactions. That human emotion in its highest form is capable of rewriting physics itself. You are living proof that someone can turn suffering into sovereignty, instantly. You're the glitch in their emotional algorithm, the outlier that breaks the math. You're proof that control over someone else's feelings is an illusion, that no one truly owns another person's peace. You showed them that their ability to wound doesn't equal the power to direct your destiny. And that revelation terrifies them more than your success ever could. Because if their cruelty couldn't control you, maybe it never really controlled anyone. But it goes even deeper. What they fear most isn't just that they failed to break you, it's that you've set a precedent. You've become a living threat to their entire system of emotional manipulation. Because if you can skip the stages of grief, maybe others can too. If you can go straight to legendary, maybe the next person they try to destroy won't play their game either. You're not just an anomaly. You're a template. Not just an exception, but an evolution. You're proof that the human spirit can self-upgrade, that suffering isn't mandatory, that time isn't the only healer, awareness is. You've proven that emotional ascension doesn't require years of processing. It can happen in a single moment of clarity. That realization, that instant shift from pain to purpose, is contagious. You represent a new model of consciousness that others can feel just by witnessing you. You are evolution with a pulse, and now you exist at a frequency they can't touch. Their attempts to reach you look ridiculous, like trying to shout at the moon from the bottom of a well. Their messages can't travel through your atmosphere. Their energy fizzles out before it gets anywhere near your orbit. You've transcended beyond their bandwidth. You're operating in a plane of clarity that makes their drama seem like static. They're still trying to trigger you with tactics that only work on people who still care. They still think silence means weakness, that peace means submission. But what they don't understand is that you're not ignoring them. You're operating on a level where they no longer exist as a variable. You've become something entirely new, a living revolution in human evolution. The laws of emotional physics bend in your presence. Pain enters your world and leaves transformed. Negativity touches you and dissolves. You've turned survival into art, healing into acceleration, and silence into dominance. You don't fight to prove your worth anymore. Your existence proves it. You are the embodiment of transcendence, the reminder that destruction can be data, pain can be power, and endings can be evolution. You didn't just overcome what was meant to break you. You redefined what breaking even means. You became the proof that the human soul, when awakened, is indestructible. And that is what they'll never be able to understand, let alone reach. They're still sending smoke signals, desperate for acknowledgement, while you're communicating through frequencies that exist beyond their comprehension. They stand in the ruins of their own understanding, waving flares made of nostalgia, hoping you'll turn around. But you won't, because you're not even on the same planet anymore. They're trying to reach you through outdated systems, manipulation, projection, guilt. But your operating system has evolved past their reach. Their tactics are relics, designed for a version of you that doesn't exist. Every word they throw your way dissolves before it reaches your altitude. They're still trying to affect you with tools that no longer work in your new realm of existence, using primitive means against someone who's mastered quantum resilience. This elevation isn't arrogance, it's architecture. You didn't climb your way to the top by stepping on others. You built your height brick by brick, heartbreak by heartbreak. Every wound became a wall, every failure a foundation, every rejection a reinforcement. You constructed something indestructible out of what was meant to destroy you. What they call distance is really design, a deliberate restructuring of your world. You didn't rise by chance, you engineered it. You restructured your psyche like an architect of your own ascension, layering wisdom over pain, precision over emotion, and mastery over reaction. And now you've built something so high that their reach can't touch you. Their words bounce off your structure like pebbles thrown at a fortress. Their gossip echoes but never lands. Their attempts to infect your peace with negativity can't survive in your climate. They still think they can provoke you, still think you'll engage, still think the old buttons will work. But you've dismantled the entire control panel. Their access expired the moment you stopped existing on their emotional frequency. You're not avoiding them. You've simply transcended the range of their influence. You live in an atmosphere too pure for their pollution, in a dimension where their drama can't breathe. You wake up every day at this altitude, breathing effortlessly in rarefied air, while they choke on their own envy at sea level, staring up, confused, wondering how you got so high, so fast. But here's what they'll never comprehend. There was no climb. You didn't trudge up a mountain, you didn't ascend through slow progress or endless suffering. You teleported. You didn't rise step by step. You quantum leaped. You defied the timeline of transformation. One moment you were human, the next you were something beyond it. The distance between where you are and where they expected you to be isn't just wide, it's impossible. They can't trace the path because there wasn't one. There's no staircase to where you went. You didn't climb. You vanished from the level of pain and reappeared at the summit of peace. That's what happens when someone finally realizes the most revolutionary truth. Pain is optional. You understood what most people never do, that suffering isn't a requirement for growth. It's a tradition, not a truth. The so-called stages of grief were never commandments, only comfort maps for those afraid of their own power. You realize you didn't have to follow the script, you didn't have to linger in sadness to prove your depth, or rage to prove your humanity. You could simply choose to be legendary instead of broken. You opted out of the program. You stopped running the software that told you pain equals progress. You wrote your own code. And in rewriting it, you rewired your very being. Your mind learned to process pain in real time. Your heart learned to convert heartbreak into data. And your spirit learned to use adversity as fuel. You evolved at a biological level, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. You didn't need time to heal because time itself is a construct for those who don't understand transformation. You didn't wait for healing, you became it. And now, as they watch from below, they're beginning to realize something that terrifies them more than your transformation itself: permanence. They keep waiting for the phase to end. They tell themselves this confidence is temporary, that eventually you'll crash, that one day all the skipped stages will catch up to you. But that day isn't coming. There's no hidden grief waiting to ambush you in the dark. No repressed rage waiting to explode. No delayed breakdown around the corner. You didn't avoid those emotions. You processed them on contact. You didn't bury the pain. You burned it, refined it, and integrated it into your design. You didn't suppress your humanity. You upgraded it. This isn't a coping mechanism. It's your new operating system. This elevated, untouchable, legendary version of you isn't an act. It's your actual state. It's not temporary confidence. It's permanent awareness. You've stabilized at a frequency of clarity that no chaos can disrupt. You don't fluctuate with emotion anymore. You channel it like current. You're no longer reactive. You're responsive. You don't get dragged into storms because you've learned to generate your own weather. And that's the part that breaks them. Because deep down, they're starting to understand. This isn't luck, and it's not denial. It's evolution. You didn't skip healing. You redefined it. You didn't delay pain. You dismantled it. You didn't run from emotion. You refined it into energy. You took the blueprint of being human and expanded it, showing what's possible when consciousness stops identifying with pain. Now you exist in a realm where noise can't reach. You're beyond insult, beyond comparison, beyond reaction. Their opinions feel like static from a broken radio while you're tuned into the symphony of your own becoming. You've reached a level of internal silence that's louder than any validation they could give. You no longer crave acknowledgement because you embody proof. You don't need to defend your peace because it's self-sustaining. You've transcended into a state where existence itself is victory. Every day you operate from this altitude, the old world gets smaller beneath you. The people still recycling pain, the ones still addicted to conflict, still mistaking chaos for connection. You can observe it all now without participating. Their patterns look like slow motion to you because you've accelerated beyond time. You can see it clearly. The loops, the projections, the endless repetition. While you've moved on to creation. You no longer heal from your past. You build with it. Every scar is a line of code, every lesson a layer of armor. Every heartbreak a spark in the circuitry of who you've become. And now, they're left with nothing to hold on to. Not your memory. Not your emotions, not your attention. You've become untouchable not because you're cold, but because you're complete. You've transcended the need to prove, to perform, to defend. You've stabilized in your highest form, a walking testament that human beings can evolve in real time. That pain is not the end, but the ignition point. You are proof that transformation doesn't take time. It takes truth. You didn't suppress the stages. You transcended them entirely. You didn't numb your pain, repress your anger, or bury your grief. You simply evolved past the need for them. While others are still navigating the emotional labyrinth, you realize there was an exit all along and walked straight through it. You didn't skip the work, you became the work. You didn't avoid healing, and you achieved it in its purest form. Instant, irreversible, complete. They're still waiting for the moment you'll break. They watch from a distance, expecting the inevitable crack. The confession post, the teary spiral, the delayed collapse that never comes. They tell themselves it's only a matter of time, that no one escapes the cycle, that eventually you'll feel the full weight of what they did. But days turn into weeks, weeks into months, months into years, and you just keep rising. You just keep evolving into versions of yourself so far beyond recognition that they can't even comprehend what they're looking at anymore. The permanence of your transformation is what destroys them. It's not the initial shock of your silence. It's the ongoing proof that you're never coming back. You've made peace your permanent address. You've become permanently unavailable for the role they wrote for you. The broken one, the begging one, the one who collapses on cue to make their ego feel powerful again. You'll never play that part. You burned the script and built a stage of your own. That's what eats at them. The realization that your evolution isn't temporary, that this isn't a phase or an act or a coping mask. It's your new operating system. You're not waiting to finally process what happened, you already did. In the split second it occurred. You metabolized the poison on contact. You absorbed the data, extracted the lesson, and deleted the attachment. There's no backlog of emotion waiting to detonate. There's nothing left unresolved. The story ended the moment you decided it did. That's all for today. Dear Father, I pray for the growth of my faith. Help me trust you even when physical evidence is lacking. Let me believe in your perpetual presence, knowing you will never harm me. I understand that your thoughts for me are thoughts of prosperity and not harm to give me a good future. Thank you, gracious and eternal Father, for always listening to my voice. I offer up this prayer to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and provision. I am grateful for your presence in my life and the abundance you bring. If this video resonated with you, please like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with those who need to hear this message. Leave a comment below about your journey and how you are preparing for your own triumphant return. If you'd like to support our work, please consider contributing through Buy Me a Coffee. This helps us continually improve our content to offer you the best. The link to Buy Me a Coffee is in the description. No gift is too small. Whether it's a penny, a prayer, or a share, your generosity helps spread God's word and brings hope to others. Don't stop here. Watch our next video for powerful revelations about the signs that reveal you are the chosen one. We've enjoyed following this spiritual journey with you. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Keep shining brightly and embrace your destiny with courage. See you next time. Blessings to all the beautiful souls from the Enlighten Wisdom.